Now we're going to look at other angles that we may encounter when dealing with circles. And I've kind of summarized them here, the main ones. Now, of course, we're familiar with the central angle, like this one here, where you have x degrees, and you want to talk about the measure of the arc. Well, it would just be x degrees. Then we have the inscribed angle back here, this ACB, and it's going to be 1/2 of that arc, the measure of the arc. Okay, so those are the two we're familiar with, the central angle and the inscribed angle. Now, I want to look at some others. Look at this one here. Notice we've got an angle that's outside the circle, but the two sides of the angle make their secants to the circle. Okay, so notice I've got the secant here and the secant here. And we want to talk about, well, how do we find the measure of that angle? Well, that one's going to be 1/2 of this arc, the measure of this arc, the measure of this arc minus the measure of this arc. So the measure of this arc minus the measure of that arc, 1/2 of that difference. Okay? Now that's when you have two secants. Now let's suppose you have two tangents. Well, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to take the measure of this outside arc here minus the measure of this arc, and you take 1/2 of it. Now, what if you have a tangent and a secant? Well, same thing. You've got this BC. Okay, dig this. You've got BC here, and then you've got AC here. So I'm going to take 1/2 of that difference. So notice, you really do the same thing for every one of them. Okay, but they look a little different. Now this next one looks different, where we have vertical angles. So let's suppose that we've got an intersection inside a circle and it forms 4 angles. And let's suppose we want to find, let's say angle 1. Okay, so notice we've got an arc, so it makes a vertical angle over here. So this one and this one, those make vertical angles. What we want to do is we want to take the arc that's opposite those. So we take this arc length, right here, AD, and we add it to this arc length. Now this is for angle 1, and we take the average of those two. Okay, so we take the average of those arc lengths. Okay, notice it's not the difference, it's the average. So if we want to get angle 1, notice we're doing the arc lengths, or we're doing the measure of the arcs above its corresponding vertical angle. Okay, we take the arc measure. Okay, now I've been saying arc length. It's the measure of the arc, I should say. Okay, so it's the measure of the arc. Okay, now if we want angle 2, we're going to take the measure of this arc, add it to this arc, and 1/2 of it. In other words, it's the average of those measures. Okay, now so this is really the whole section. Now down here you get the theorems and all, and we can go through those, but let's just look at an example here. Notice we want angle 1. Well, the measure of angle 1 is going to be 1/2 of the 150. Okay, so it'd be what, 75. Okay. Now over here we've got the measure. What we want now is we want this the measure of the arc. So the measure of the arc is going to be, we know this is 1/2 of the measure of the arc. So this is going to be 260, the arc measure. And that's what they want because they gave us the angle measure there. Okay. Okay, now let's look at some more here. Here's one of those where we want to find x. Well, x is going to be 1/2 of 106 plus 174. Okay, and that's going to give you your x. So x degrees is equal to that. And I guess that would be about 140. Okay, so that's the angle measure there. Okay, so just some examples. Now, okay, so let's now I've got the theorems and all here, but I summarized them at the first, and these are what gave me the authority to make the statements I did at the very beginning. These theorems. Now let's look at these down here. We'll look at A first. Now what we want to find is we want to find x. Well, let's see here. We know that 72 degrees is equal to 1/2 of 200 minus x, like that. We know that that is the relationship that exists there. So if I multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of that 1/2, I'm going to get 144, and this is 200 minus x. Now if I solve for x here, I've got, well, if I subtract 200 from both sides, I'm going to get a negative. So I get negative 56 equals negative x. So x is equal to 56. Now we could try it out. We could say, okay, let's do 200 minus 56 and then divide that by 2, and we get 72. So yeah, it all works out there. Okay, same thing over here. Let's see what we've got. Oh, this is a tricky one. They don't give us any numbers up here. But you notice something here that if you look at these arcs, this arc here and this arc here make up the entire circle. So 360 degrees. So let's see if we can work with that. We want x, and it's equal to 1/2 of, well, something minus 92. Well, that something minus 92 is 360 minus 92, because this little arc, those two arcs make up the whole circle, so it makes up 360 degrees. So if I take 360 minus 92, I get 268. 268. So that will give us the x. So let's see here. We've got 268 minus 92. And if I take 1/2 of that, I get 88. So x must be 88 degrees. Or x degrees must be 88 degrees. There you have it. Yeah, that'll do it.